The following is a special SPOFest presentation.
In other words, conversations with poets, writers, and authors discussing their lives outside of writing. Here are your hosts, James Bryant and Lee Eric Friedman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of In Other Words, everyone's favorite program where we talk about the lives of poets and writers outside of their writing lives. So, my name is James Bryant. Alongside me, my host, all in the same, Lee Eric Friedman. Hello, Lee.
Hey, James. Good afternoon.
To you as well. Let us say hello to the lady in the hot seat this afternoon, Belinda Subraman. Hello, Belinda.
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to be here.
Hi, Belinda. Welcome.
Thanks for taking the time on a busy weekend to be with us. Let's learn about Belinda and her writing career. With that, we turn it over to Lee.
Okay, thanks, James, and welcome, Belinda. So, beside writing and publishing for decades, Belinda Subraman was a registered nurse for 14 years, mostly in hospice. She's also an artist working in ink and acrylics. Belinda's been a member of several drumming groups, and she's been playing African rhythms for over 9 years, taught directly from African drumming masters. Belinda also has a daily yoga practice and documents the arts and activism on her YouTube channel, and you can find that on youtube.com/Belinda Subraman. Now that's all about Belinda, the multi-talented artist. Let's hear about Belinda Subraman in other words.
Thank you, Lee. Let us indeed learn all about Belinda. Belinda, as Lee mentioned in the bio, you were a registered nurse for 14 years. Some of that would be a hospice. Could you tell us about what drew you to becoming a registered nurse and more so dealing with hospice care?
Well, actually, I needed to get away from my second husband, and I needed a way to support myself. So it's unglamorous. And I thought, what might I be good at? And I thought, well, I could be caring. Maybe I'll do that. So that's a kind of how I got my push to get into that. How I got into hospice, I had been with a friend's best friend who was dying. And plus, I worked at a nursing home, which was like my second job. My first job was with Psych Center. But when I worked at the nursing home, I had deaths on my floor, and that was my first experience. And it was kind of hard there in the beginning, but I did notice that so many people in the nursing home, there was nobody coming to see them. Most of them didn't have good mental facilities, and there's always a lot of the help who don't really give a crap. There's always a couple that do, and they would sit in their urine and not get turned, and they were just a job for a lot of the people. And I was thinking, hospice is a beautiful way to go. You're at home with your family. Generally, I think they do have dedicated facilities for that, but what I did was go to people's houses, and they're in their familiar environment with the people they love, and it just seemed the way to go. It's like the way I would want to go. So that's what got me into that. And most of my time as a nurse was actually in hospice, and it's not all peachy. But you got difficult families that basically you become the person they kind of blame you for them dying.
Right.
You're supposed to be able to accept no more treatment, you're ready. But some of the people would come in on hospice because of the people that procured patients for us, promised them the sun, the moon, and everything. We'd be there 24/7. That's not how it works. But we did have some really lovely families that understood what it was all about. And I know that I helped a lot of people, and they helped me grow.
Mm,
And it's a beautiful thing if done with care and love. And I also was unofficial hospice patient for my father. I
mm,
was with him for the last few days of his life. I slept in the room in a chair, and I was with him as he died. And that was the most poignant, beautiful, and sad at the same time, most one of the deepest experiences of my life.
Mm.
I,
Yeah. What what goes through your mind when you're sitting with someone who's close to that point? Um, I mean, it's got to be extremely, um, emotional for you, because obviously you have to have the capacity to care for someone, and just knowing that it's just a matter of time before that person goes. You know, what type of? I'm not sure if I'm asking the right question. I mean, obviously you have to be very strong emotionally to do something like this. What goes through your mind on a daily basis when you're trying to take care of someone?
Well, you do become close to your families, especially when you have them over a year or something. And like I say, each situation is totally different. Some people will keep you back, and some people, really depend on you. But when you're actually sitting by someone who is dying, it's all about them, their needs, and the families. You leave
mm,
yourself out of it. After the situation is over, and you wait until I guess the mortician, the people that drive that pick up the body, you
mm,
wait till after they leave, and then at some point there, you've got to say goodbye. And that's where emotions come in, which is
mm,
okay, I think, when you're hugging them goodbye. You shared a really deep experience together, and I could say, especially if you've known them for many months, and yeah, that's when I show some emotion. But
mm.
then it's got to be reasonable. It can't be boohooing. I save the really big stuff till after I get home.
Right,
And
Well,
I
yeah.
get home, and then I'll let it out. But you've
right.
got to really put the patient and the patient's family first. And it's utmost importance. And I was good at that, I think.
Mm,
You have to
Uh,
find a happy medium to, be able to express that emotion, um, but at the same time be strong for the family, because
right.
obviously they're
mm,
going through that grief just as well as you are. Obviously, a lot more because it's,
Oh, yes,
yeah.
that because I mean, they're not my family. I mean,
right.
it's different. Like when I was with my father, I mean, that's my life.
Mm,
That's a whole different
Yeah.
thing. So I'm able to have that fence in there too, even though I have a certain closeness with the hospice family. It's not the same as being my family member. And you just got to keep it in the foremost in your mind to be the strong one for them.
right. Now, you mentioned that you were with some of the families for months, or weeks. Are you assigned to one specific family or person at a time, or do you spend, a few hours at one person and then go to the next one during the course of the day or week or something?
Yes, I would have up to 20 patients,
Oh,
and
wow.
it would there's no one-on-one directly. You'd have to pay for a private nurse. I
Oh,
work
okay.
for a corporation, and so you start your visits maybe twice a week, depending on the severity, because I had at least one or two patients several years.
Mm,
The thing that qualifies you for hospice is that two doctors come together and say, if things are going the way it looks like they're going, they'll probably be dead in 6 months. But
mm,
they don't have to be. As
yeah.
long as they're getting worse and not better, we can keep them on. Um, so, oh, what was the question again?
Oh, were you assigned to multiple patients? And you
Yes,
said, yeah,
yes, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And did you? I mean, you mentioned people getting better. Did you have patients that came out of hospice and you know?
Yeah, not usually, but I think we
Mm,
had one or two
mm,
that started on an upward climb. And
right.
after a couple of reports that they were doing better and better, that we had to let them go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a
Too
good
bad
thing.
that that doesn't
Yeah.
happen
Yeah.
all the time, you know.
Oh, rarely, actually.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And this is is there a lot of, like, do families ask you to pray, and how religious does it get, things like that, or is that something you have to distance yourself from as
Oh
a
yeah.
No,
stepping
no,
out?
I've never had anyone to ask me to pray, but anytime something like that were to go on and
Mm,
all that, I would be reverent about it. That
right.
would usually be as they were dying or already passed. I think that there's some rituals that I've seen that go on afterwards.
Yeah.
And I just stand to the back and be reverent, and I
Right.
don't openly participate, but also I respect it.
Right. Right. Interesting. Interesting. I know a good friend of mine from one of my poetry groups passed away. It'll be 2 years in August, and she was in a facility, and another friend of mine, that a mutual friend, is in a choir, and they went to the facility, and I guess they weren't allowed in because only family members are, but they sang outside in the garden, to the windows and to the patients and things, and even that, my friend who did that said that was such a moving and experience, and it was very
Yeah.
emotional for her that she did that.
Yeah, at least once a year. It might have been twice. I don't quite remember. We would have a ceremony, usually at a church, some facility big enough, and we invite the hospice families of the past year
Mm,
to join us, and we would remember all the patients and read their names. And then we'd go outside and we would release white helium balloons or
right,
doves or something.
right.
And as they were able to, yeah, with the balloons, as they released them, it sort of sent a message that was so important to them. It
Mm,
was gratifying in some beautiful
mm,
way.
interesting.
It's very
Interesting.
spiritual, actually.
Yeah, it
But
seems it. And I mean, I just remember my grandmother when I was a kid, and it was, she was in the hospital for months and machines, and it was just absolutely frightening, and I don't, yeah. And,
yeah,
when you're 12 or, 13, it just, it was something that you got to kind of block it out, but this just seems like it's a lot more peaceful
right,
and giving, more giving, and less
right.
cold and calculated.
Yeah, and fighting death at some point is just not right. I
Right.
mean, you do everything you can as there's a possibility to get better
Yeah.
or to at least have a quality of life. But when you are hooked up to all these machines and things and there's no real hope,
Mm,
that's it's not cool. You're not helping the patient at that point.
yeah.
You are fighting your own grief. You don't want to face your grief of letting your loved one go.
Mm,
Actually, that can be selfish.
yeah. Yeah. Well, we are talking to Belinda Subraman today, and Belinda, you studied and took lessons in African drumming for about 9 years, and you also studied with some African drumming masters. And yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
I
That
hope we
sounds
have
really
show and
cool.
tell.
Yeah.
I'm not ready, but there on my website there are some things of me drumming and but okay, how that started. Well, always interested in trying new things, you might say.
Mm,
And a friend invited me to go to this house one time where they do kind of woo-woo things, and they had a labyrinth in the backyard, a
cool.
stone thing where you could walk, and they had drums you could borrow. And I thought, cool, okay, like during the ceremony. And so I got a drum, was just like a hide stretched over a wooden hoop and the
Mm,
mallet.
yeah.
And so there was about 20, 30 of us there, and some Indian shaman led it. And it was a basic beat, heartbeat. He would start, and then we would. And after a little while, you start realizing you're sinking in the same energy exactly. And when that happened, I felt tears well up in my eyes. It's like, oh my God, we are sharing the same energy or something like that. And I
Mm,
knew there's something to this. And then in the not too long after that, I started being part of a network where I could see these messages. I saw where a woman was teaching making your own drum,
mm,
and she was part Hispanic and part Indian, Native American. We went to her workshop and we made our own drum. The first
oh,
ones was
wow.
with cowhide and with elk hide, and it's like magic. It's like after you get that done, you let it dry overnight. Boom! Suddenly, it makes a sound. And then we
Mm,
had a birthing ceremony like the next day, and we take our drums and we start drumming. So I was into the sort of magic of drumming, you might say, or could be a better word, the connection that happens when you drum. And then I saw a thing about learning African drumming. So I went to that. It was just my husband and myself. I think we are the only ones that show up that day. And
mm,
oh, before I started, I couldn't get my hands to move right. It was just like crazy. And I've seen other people wanted to drum and they were doing the same thing that it took me a long time to get my hands going right. But
mm,
anyway, after years of training, you eventually can play.
right,
Some people may have it naturally, but I was not a natural. Uh,
right.
and so I stuck with it and eventually could play and certain African rhythms and whatever. So the guy we learned from, he learned directly from an African master from, I think, Ghana. I'm not 100% sure which country. And all of our drums are carved in Africa, and they have natural hides over them. And they break every once in a while. And that hide is the most important thing to your drum. And it takes like all day to get it strung correctly
Mm,
and then tightened correctly without breaking it. Sometimes they break, and it's an expensive kind of thing. Your drums are roughly $800, and then
oh,
you've
wow.
got to re-hide them. That hide could be a couple hundred or more, and it's so much to doing it, you know.
Mm,
I'm very happy. Now I'm into Ravest metal drums, originally from Russia. And we got ours right before the Russian-Ukrainian war. They came directly from Russia, but you can get them all over now in the US.
mm,
And they're kind of like a handpan, but they're metal tongues. It's the same size.
okay.
We use mallets because it would break our old wrists to do it with our hands, but you can play them with your hands. And when you see videos of people playing them, they're like in their 20s and they're young white males. Generally, is what I see, and they're doing their hands. Oh yes, that's beautiful. But
Right.
we,
So,
um,
so I've
What?
got to ask. Oh, go ahead, James, if you wanted to add something.
Well, I was going to ask briefly, how would you describe the difference between African and Russian drumming drums to the what we're probably more aware of, American drums, if you will, if there's
well,
a.
the Ravas drums are metal. They're kind of like handpans, and as far as styles of drumming, I don't have any idea about that because
Mm,
the Ravas are completely different from the African drums. There's just no comparison, and it's just like apples and oranges, I guess.
right.
But are they done more for ritualistic purposes, ceremonies, as opposed to making music with them?
No, you can make music with them, and I've never heard any Russian music with them. My husband he used to get up and listen to meditative videos, and he
Mm,
heard the sound he loved. And at the end, he'd look at the credits and figured out what was that sound that he heard. It was the Ravast, and he ordered. He ordered
mm.
one.
Oh,
It
cool.
is a magical meditative sound. If I made a sound here, which I don't even have a drum in this room, it would probably fuzz out over the Zoom. But I have a tab on my site, on my YouTube site, that says Ravast with poetry or something.
Mm.
It's one of those things you might not see right away. You'd have to dig at, but there is actually a tab Ravast drums with poetry.
Yeah, that was that was a question that I had. I know we're not I'm breaking our own rule by talking about poetry, but have you recited your poetry with people drumming behind you? Because that should be
Only to my own drumming, where
oh, okay,
you'll see me drum and then I'll add a track over it of me
okay,
reading. And I've done it just a few times.
right. And have you got into other percussion? Friend of mine has the singing bowls that she bought in India, and she does a lot of that, and then she'll recite her poetry as well. Things like
Yeah,
that, different
yeah.
percussion. It's such an
Yeah,
amazing.
percussion. Yeah, I've explored a lot of percussion. I'm
Mm,
not great at it. I would never say that I'm really much of a musician,
right.
but if you've got a heartbeat, you can drum to some
Yeah,
extent.
yeah,
So,
yeah. The magic of it is just so incredible, especially when you see like a line of, like you said, 20 people, 25 people. It's just incredible. So,
Well, this is a slight segue into a similar subset,
thank you.
in a way, kind of, sort of. So, Belinda, you took and studied Kung Fu lessons for several years, and you, in fact, can do Chinese splits and break bricks with your hand.
oh, did I tell you that? Well, yes, that's true, but not anymore. That would have
Oh,
been in the 90s. In the 90s,
90. Okay, all right. Well,
in the 90s, I did two nights a week belly dancing and three evenings kung fu. I was in great shape. I could do Chinese splits then. Um, I, like I say, I've always been into exploring things with my mind and to some extent my body, I suppose, but fitness, you'd say.
Mm,
I could do all that then. I've got some fetching pictures from back then, but I'm not doing that now.
the the
well,
the
yeah, I
cult.
guess I should have wrapped that sentence in. You used to take
Yeah,
Kung
yeah,
Fu lessons. But in any case, I don't want to ever piss you off, especially since you can break Chinese bricks with your hands, or used to. That is,
Yes.
yeah. That's pretty cool.
yeah, not only that, but that is, because, I mean, I'll be trying to break sticks when I be trying to dabble in it, and that about broke my damn wrist.
Yeah,
Um,
Well,
yeah.
I can
how
tell
did
you,
you, I mean, is it literally mind over matter at that point when you break a brick?
it's in the shoulders where the power comes from. If you try to put it from your hand or your wrist, you're going to hurt yourself.
Okay, well,
Mm,
that's what I was
Uh,
doing.
so so it's like it's from the shoulder. Plus, you need to practice and be pretty strong before you attempt it.
yeah,
But you got to charge from your shoulder. That's the key.
Does it
right.
help to yell, "Hi-ya-ya!" You know, do stuff like that? Did that really help, or is that just BS?
Maybe. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember.
Right.
Now I do know that sometimes, I think it's in the Japanese war, by making those loud, "Ah-ya!" It's actually designed to intimidate your enemy.
It could be.
Well, it's
Um,
almost it's almost natural. I mean, you're got the steam building up, and then
yeah.
you release it with the power. Yeah.
Web, it'd be really cool to have an Olympic sport where they like judge the best.
Or just, well, they do have martial arts in the,
Yes.
Well, I know, but like a
yeah.
separate judgment,
Okay.
judge, where they,
For rebel yells.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
there you
yeah,
go.
yeah,
Rebel, yeah, yeah,
yeah. Which
yeah,
judge was scared the most from that? Yeah.
yeah. So now I don't know a lot about different martial arts, but why kung fu over karate or jujitsu or some of the other ones? It just is there
Because
how are you?
I saw a course offered
Oh,
at
okay.
the local university, University of Texas at El Paso, UTEP,
Mm,
and it was one of those continuing education courses. And I thought,
okay.
hey, let's go. I said to my husband at the time, and just we tried it out. I think it was actually Tai Chi that we took first, but the same guy was into Kung Fu.
Right.
And so the next class that we took was Kung Fu by the same guy, and he started his own studio, and we joined the studio. So the Kung Fu came, I was with that for maybe 3 years, and I tried to stay with it when I was in nursing school, but I really had to drop out because nursing school was very demanding.
Mm.
I mean, they'll give you you get a book like that thick and says, okay, read half of this. We're having a test tomorrow. And some people had like shopping carts that they were carrying, pushing around with all the
Right.
big, heavy book. They try to scare as many people out of it as possible because you got to be tough.
Mm.
And so that's why I kind of let the Kung Fu go. It was for nursing.
Right. And
They,
how
they, they
far?
try to scare you because it's tough, and you show them, hey, I can break a brick with my
Yeah, I can
hand.
break apart.
Well, there's many kinds of toughness,
Yeah.
mental toughness would not be the
Right,
main
right.
Yeah.
thing.
What color belt did you achieve,
Oh
or how
yeah,
far?
None.
purple.
I don't think did we do belts? I
Or-
don't think we did belts.
okay.
So, no,
Yeah.
but we got
Just a little bit.
certificates and this, that, and the other.
Right.
It was just a learning experience. We weren't centered on levels and stuff.
Right. Right. So so you've got a very varied resume in reading your bio,
He
and
does. He does.
I got this. Like James gave me the long question today. So besides kung fu and drumming, and you've worked in many areas of arts, stained glass, pottery. You've made soap, jewelry. You've embroidered. You've knitted and crocheted. You're a painter. You've done mosaic, among other things. What is your favorite and why?
Well, first of all, I have to be creating, I guess. And that started young in my life. I saw my grandmother who lived across the road and she was always making things. And I thought
Right.
it was fascinating. And then I'd have her to teach me things. Uh, it's just each thing is the most important while I'm doing it because I am creating something out of nothing, a pile of yarn, a few little bits laying over here. It's like a magic thing. You can make stuff out of nothing. Well, stuff out of little bits and pieces. So right now, at this moment in time, painting is my where my energy is mostly. Writing also will always be with me, but it's in the background now. And painting is the daily meditation, you might say.
Mm.
And also, there's a spiritual aspect to a lot of my paintings. There's one behind me.
Oh
I
wow.
call it the birth of flowers. I don't know if you can see it well enough to even get a gist of what that might be.
Yeah.
Do you see it's either the lightning or the roots or both. Can you see it?
Yeah, I do see that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
What
It's
what do we
great.
see, Lee? What are we seeing?
We see. Oh, yeah, the description would be. So it looks like there's several flowers. The background is green, and
it's actually blue and green.
okay, blue and green, and there's various flowers. One in the center, and then the others are kind of
Yeah, and there's like a
yeah,
a glowing hole.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, and there are flowers coming out of the what appears to be a glowing hole, and it could be roots, or lightning.
Or both, kind of.
And
Yeah.
or both emanating from the hole as well.
Yeah.
You
It's
say
sort
a
of like
glowing hole, like
no
like a black.
glowing, no
Glowing.
glowing.
Glowing. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it.
okay.
I'm trying to. It's sort of. I'm thinking maybe like to describe for James, maybe a galaxy with a glowing center, and then the
Okay.
flowers are kind of coming out of the center of the
It's
galaxy.
kind of it's a
Yeah,
individual, but I would say spiritual interpretation
yeah,
of the mystery of life.
yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's what comes out of my work these days, something about the whole mystery of life and how we're all connected to it all.
mm,
That's
yeah,
why that's why the roots and things.
yeah. Now, what medium is that? Paint? That's painting.
Yeah, this is acrylic,
Okay.
but there's a collage elements with tissue. even
Okay.
though I didn't really need it. It's what it's the flowers are tissue with, but also
Okay.
with acrylic.
Great. That's awesome. That's really cool. And you mentioned earlier before we started taping, you got into several galleries. You're doing gallery shows, and that's cool. Have you
Well,
sold any of your work?
I have, yes, not a whole lot. I'm just
Mm.
getting started with that. I've sold at two different places, and another gallery wants to see more of my work. Have an appointment for next Friday.
Oh, that's
And
great.
there's one in particular they're interested in, but said bring more. And
Oh,
that
wow.
same gallery bought 12 from me a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
And they tell me that the interior decorator bought three of them. And I just happened to see some of mine on in their gallery on the wall. So yeah, I love the fact that people have me in their homes. That
Yeah,
there's
that's
something
good.
about that. I like getting poetry and stuff out there too because it's part of who I am. But people, I think, pay more attention to the visual, perhaps,
Mm.
and when they can, that is. And I just love being on people's walls.
What would you
Right.
classify your painting? Abstract or
Uh, it leans toward abstract, and some of it I'd call it realistic abstract.
okay?
But yeah, abstract would be in there.
Mm.
But you could usually you get something from it. It's not like just squiggly lines and you just get a feeling or something. It's like you get some kind of message here,
Mm.
but it's up to you, the individual viewer. Like it
Mhm.
just, I don't know. What do you see?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I've always been a little, I don't know, dubious with some, abstract. It's just like, what the hell is that supposed to be? But
no.
then again, I wasn't like sophisticated as I probably am now, where I can appreciate, artwork because, most of that artwork was being shoved down my throat during high school, and you know what I mean. I didn't want to have anything to do with it, and it's
Mm.
like, hell, I
Well,
can do that, and I can sell it for $10,000.
Well, my attitude is like, well, it speaks to you or it doesn't.
Yeah.
If you don't care for it, that's okay. That's your opinion. That's your opinion.
Mm.
But the
And
way
if
Lee and
yeah,
you had described that sounds really cool. Cause I can picture, like kind of like a black hole and flowers coming out of it. You
Yeah.
know, there's something, I don't know, something more elegant, substantive, as
Yeah.
opposed to as
yeah,
opposed to just a bunch of squiggly lines that go nowhere.
it's just
Yeah.
like
But
more like light. Flowers are coming out of the light.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's really cool. Yeah.
yeah.
It is. I love that. And I love that you said that you like to see your piece of yourself in other people's homes because I've heard artists say, some of them say, well, I can't, I want to sell it, but every time I sell it, I cry because I'm losing a piece of myself.
Well,
It's the complete opposite.
well, I went through that too. And
Okay. Separation.
I do miss pieces. So I
Mm.
want to make sure I've got a picture, and I really appreciate if someone takes a picture of my work on their wall.
Oh, yeah.
And I really appreciate that. But I didn't even try to sell for a few years. But people started asking me on Facebook, is this for sale? And I thought, what? Is this for sale?
Oh, I'm going to have to
And I said
look.
I hadn't thought about it. And I got a bunch of that until finally there was one I thought, well, maybe I can part with this one. And when they said, well, is this for sale? I said, yeah, okay. And in a private message, I gave him some kind of price. He paid it.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
same person bought several from me. And
Now,
it's
at,
like, what?
at that
Well,
point, when you're trying to give a price to your work, I mean, unless you're in dire strait and you need the money, how do you go about setting a price on your artwork, or is it
well,
pretty? I mean, how do you go about doing that?
it's
Mm.
whatever the traffic will bear. The first thing that I
Oh,
did
okay,
was
yeah.
it was kind of some collage elements on an ink painting, 11 by 14, and this guy says, okay, how much I want to buy it? And I looked at my husband, and he told me like $10 or $20. I thought, oh, come on. So I
Mm,
said 60 on that one because I figured, no, come on, at least 60. And they said, I'll send my man up to get it. It was a lawyer's office downtown. So
wow.
he sent his man. I thought, well, okay, I'm going to ask for more next time.
Yeah.
Anyway, the average right now where I'm at is like 250 and above.
Okay.
And I've sold a bunch at that. It's more important for me to be for the paintings to be in people's houses than to price myself out of the market.
Mm,
Like, it's got to be what people think you're worth, what they're willing to buy. I mean, if I start getting some kind of reputation or some kind of something, then the price is going to inch up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I just kind of carefully weigh and balance that.
right.
I
Right.
did recently win Best of Show at an exhibit, and I have won second place in a really big in the Sun Bowl exhibit, which is connected to the Sun Bowl at UTEP. Uh,
Mm,
it's the longest running show in the Southwest from 1946.
oh,
So
wow.
I thought that was a pretty big deal.
That's
So
great.
I have my prize winning.
Yeah. So your price has gone up, right?
Well, it's still about the same because I only submit to local places.
Okay.
That's another cherry I need to pop is sending things out to other places, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm
Right.
not sure how to go about it yet, but one step at a time.
So,
Um,
yeah.
We're running a little bit over time. All
Oh,
these
okay.
topics are extremely fascinating. So what I'm going to do, Belinda, the next question that we had was going to be asking about your visit with Iraqi refugees.
oh,
Um, would you be able to, without Lee and I asking really any question, because like I said, we're running really tight now, quickly, like a couple of minutes, tell us about that experience, and then we'll move on to the final segment.
okay. Well, in the late 90s and around the turn of the century, early on, I was the spokesperson for the Green Party locally and statewide, and I was sent to the national convention in Colorado. Uh, where I met Ralph Nader and a bunch of folks like that, and I was a Texas spokesperson uh, in that first national conference, and it was on CNN and C-SPAN stuff. Well, anyway, since I was an activist in the Green Party and I was on this list in email, I saw this thing about joining a peace mission to Jordan to interview Iraqi refugees. And I also was interviewing people too on podcasts back then. So you put them all together. It sounded really exciting and interesting. That's how I got to go on that. And it was, there is up on the internet the whole diary of my experiences during that trip. And so we did interview the refugees. We even went to the United Nations uh, component for that. The stories were amazing, and a lot of it was where the refugees had helped out the Americans and then they abandoned. So there was some
Mm,
of that. And it's just like too much to go into, but that's how I got to go. I saw a notice on a Green Party thread and I said, yeah, it sounds interesting. I want to do that.
hmm.
Well, we definitely like to have you back for a second episode. We extend that invitation to some of our guests who have so much to talk about,
Yeah.
and it's kind of hard to cram all that into a single episode. So keep that in mind moving forward. If you'd like to come back on a little bit later on in the future, we'd love to have you back on because there's other stuff that we get a chance to talk about. You know, belly dancing, and I mean, I'm sure there's other things that we could have another episode
Yeah.
around. So, um, yeah, really fascinating stuff. We're learning
Mm,
all about Belinda Subraman, and unfortunately, as it is with all things in life, Time. So with that, let's go to our final segment.
Would you rather?
Oh boy.
Would you
Oh,
rather? And
all right.
turn it over to Mr. Lee Eric Friedman.
So I promise it won't be what we talked about. But this is a weird one as well. And it's sort of related to the arts because you're an artist. And a lot of artists do some weird stuff. And it's kind of related maybe to you being adventurous and trying new things. This question does not have a number, James. It's part of that one.
Okay.
So you're going to probably kill me.
Oh, God.
Belinda, would you rather be stuck in an elevator or stuck in an air duct vent?
Well, I happen to be claustrophobic.
Oh my.
So of
Okay.
course, I wouldn't want either one of those, but an air duct vent is much more confining.
Yeah.
So well, naturally, it would be the elevator.
Okay. So there's a certain artsy related to that. I don't know.
Really?
Well, I don't know.
Well, there might be, but I think there's buttons that for alarm or where you can
Yeah.
push when there's a problem, so you have some way of contacting the outside world.
Yeah.
Assuming those buttons work, sometimes you hit
Yeah,
that.
well, there's that.
Yeah.
There's a little more air to breathe and all
Yeah.
that. And I immediately thought of someone died in an air vent.
Oy.
54. They couldn't get in any other way, and they were desperate to get in. And they crawled into the vent, and they got stuck, and they found a dead body days later because it's
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
question.
All right. I'm sorry I was so morbid.
Oh well, I've been talking about death and dying all the whole time.
Yeah,
Right.
well, it all comes full circle, actually.
Yeah.
We start
Yeah,
with,
but I was thinking more of an artsy related stunt when I picked it out as opposed to.
Oh, yeah, so what Lee was thinking, like you would channel that negative energy. So, like, you're stuck in the elevator. You're like, well, what the hell do I do? Oh, I'll just paint the walls on the elevator. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'll
well,
do.
yeah, or those artists that, do weird stuff or just some sort of performance art. That's what I was sort of had in mind.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
Yeah,
I would
like-
rather paint in an elevator than in a duct.
that'd be cool. Yeah, I think
While
that
it was
would-
moving or while it was stationary?
Oh, either way. I
Yeah.
mean, sure.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Oh, you know what'd be really interesting? Like, have a group of artists who paint, and everyone take turn going into the elevator, and leaving off where the other one left. Starting where the other one left off. So,
Yeah.
Belinda, you go in there and do some painting, and then the floor stopped at a random the floor stopped. The elevator
elevator.
stopped at a random floor, and then you step off, and then another artist comes in there and picks up where you know what I mean. And you just kind of
yeah, like the exquisite corpse poem.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, like an exquisite corpse painting or something.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's
Okay,
very
I'll sign up for that.
I would do that.
Yeah,
That would be poetry reading in an elevator.
with music as you're
Yeah.
backing. Yeah.
No, with drummers or something. A drummer.
Oh yeah, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
we can mix poetry, art, and music together. I
Yeah.
mean,
yeah. We'll have
drum on the
Belinda on
stand,
retainer when it
paint.
comes to providing music. We'll have her on
Yeah.
retainer.
Oh yeah,
Just
that'd
bring
be
your
it.
drums. Bring
All
your
right,
drums.
we gotta book this. We'll talk
Yeah,
off
we're
camera.
Belinda, it has been a blast.
Thank you.
I've seen you for the last couple of years on Facebook. You do great things with gas, poetry, and music. Did I
Yeah.
get that right? In the right order? Gas, poetry, and music?
Poetry, art, and music.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And so and I never had a chance to speak with you until just now during this episode. So it's been a pleasure meeting with you and learning all about you when you're not writing.
Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a blast for me too.
Okay, here we go. So, if you'd like to be on the next episode of In Other Words, you know what to do. Hit us up on Facebook, Lee or myself, and we'll get you on. Till then, take care of yourselves, people, and stay away from the elevator.